Good morning and welcome to Elections Update. We are now into the second week of campaigning following a very interesting and eventful weekend.
On today's show, we'll be talking to Joe Mcdowell, who'll be giving us an insight into Burn FM's election coverage.
Good morning and welcome to the show. I'm Katharine Walker.
And I'm Josh Petty-Demonge.
So voting has officially opened, so make sure to log into your MyBHAM portal to make sure that your voice is heard.
Now, this weekend saw a very eventful weekend with a lot going on with the Guild politics.
We can now confirm that Indiana Josh, who was running for the position of Vice President of Housing and Community, has decided to stop campaigning following some controversial comments on social media.
Members of the student body accessed his Facebook account and complained about some of the inappropriate nature of the comments that were being publicly made available.
This called into question his appropriateness for the role in light of some of the images on his page.
But now, moving on, we're going to go and have a look at... what are we having a look at today?
We're going to have a look at the presidential debate and what happened.
Yep.
It was a very interesting debate. Our candidates went head-to-head and answered some questions from the student body.
Let's take a look at what we missed this weekend.
The time is 5 p.m. and this is the presidential debate 2013. We'll now go to the first round of challenges. Has any candidate got a challenge for the other?
Mark, how can you say that the Guild politics isn't a boys' club when there's one woman and 6 men on the opposite team for the last 2 years?
Tim, with regard to that, I was merely answering the question.
I'm wondering whether you recognise the autonomy and the need to have BME representatives in order to directly tackle them.
I understand that the best people to tackle those issues would be the people who've suffered the problems themselves. However, I want to be able to represent them in those issues.
I'm the only person to have a postcard point in my manifesto.
2014 in general, I've been talking about accessibility, yet what they're really trying to do is intending to bring in a clique.
It isn't a clique and it is like a diverse range of students who are getting involved with like shared visions. This isn't like some monster campaign.
Eric, aren't you more having a go at the election system and how it works at the moment rather than 2014?
It proved to be a very interesting debate, and if you want to see the whole event, please log on to www.guildelections.co.uk.
We now have a copy of what Josh Llewellyn said. He said, "In light of recent events, I've decided to cease campaigning. I have reconsidered my actions and stopping campaigning is the right thing to do. I do feel it's been blown out of proportion, though I completely understand views on it and why it is wrong. Again, my apologies to anyone offended."
Though Josh has also confirmed that even though he is stopping campaigning, you can still vote for him.
Anyway, we're joined right now by Joe Mcdowell, who's going to be giving us an insight into the presidential debate.
So, hello Joe, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. So obviously you were there at the presidential debate and you did a bit of pre-show and post-show analysis. So can you give us a roundup of what you think happened, how you think the event went?
I think it was very interesting. I think we saw for the first time kind of the major differences but also many similarities between candidates. I think the presidential debate this year is an interesting one because we've got 5 candidates all standing on very different policy issues. There's no real middle ground on any of them. I was very impressed with a few candidates. I thought Mark and Tim came across very well. I thought Mark gave some very straight answers, which I think people found very refreshing. Talking to people during the debate, talking to people after the debate, people seemed to think that his yes and no answers to some of the questions were very good. Tim Lucas was very, very good as well. He came across as very, very strong, had a very good leadership role. But equally, Arik, Malia and Poppy had some very interesting things to say. For me, personally, which is my very own personal, I think Mark did very well. I think he came out stronger than he'd gone into it. He has a smaller presence on campus in terms of cardboard, in terms of posters, but I think he came out the presidential debate very well. This today will be key for them though. I mean, president is probably one of the most contested roles this year, especially with the impact of things like the Guild 2014 and also controversy surrounding certain candidates. I think it's going to be very interesting to see who's going to come out on top, because often most votes and the majority of votes are stood on the first day. And so whichever one can get the upper hand this morning could well win the election.
Like you just said, Mark hasn't got a huge, position on campus with, not a lot of cardboard and everything. And the 2014 team haven't they? They've got quite a large variety of posters out there. Do you think that would affect Mark a lot?
Yes and no. I think sometimes, when you turn up on the Monday and there's cardboard everywhere, I think some of that can have a bit of a negative impact on some candidates if it's plastered everywhere, but of course your name's out there. Exactly. I think increasingly, Tetris Tim, for example, has done a very good job at using sort of the internet, social media, YouTube especially, to really get his input out there, get his face out there, his name out there. I think increasingly that's where it's going to go. I'm not sure, though, is the honest answer. Yeah. I think Mark Williams is perhaps, he hasn't had a big presence, but he's doing quite well. So it's a balance. I'm not quite sure where it will land. It will be very interesting to see how that will affect the campaign on the whole.
So in terms of the presidential debate and some of the debates we've had with the vice president positions as well, we found that a lot of the candidates didn't really want to contest each other. There wasn't so much debate. Do you think maybe they're trying to play it safe a little bit?
I think so. Everyone seems to be wanting to come across as Mr. Nice Guy or Mrs. Nice Guy. There's been no real sort of like what we perhaps want to see, like debates, real sort of coming head to head over certain issues. Because obviously that's when the best debate comes out. That's often when the best policies are formed, when they're contested. I know there are certain positions which are being unopposed, which for me is worrying, not because of the candidates running, just because there is no debate. There is no competition for positions. They don't have to prove themselves on the sort of the toughest level. I personally would have liked to see more challenges. I know Burn FM have done a number of have done debates with every candidate position, and often they are very sort of like very polite, they're pre-approved statements. They all sound very good, but when you actually get down to it, what you want is a good sort of good debate. You want a good argument almost, where people can actually talk about and get out the issues. 'Cause obviously, at the moment, the Guild has gone through a period of controversy. Obviously, people's opinion of the Guild has changed, even in the last 6 months. Yeah. I think there are certain things which do need to be debated, and I think it'd be very interesting, especially if this can come to a head in this week, what will come out. Because I think there are a lot of things that need to change. I think a lot of things need to be addressed, and this seemed like a very good opportunity that perhaps they've missed to finally attack some of these problems and deal with the issues the Guild is facing at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in a little while.
Now, representing the student body takes a lot of time and commitment.
Most of our sabbatical and non-sabbatical officers are only in position for 1 year. But we have to ask, is that year long enough?
We're going to join Claire Lynch now, who's been asking the officers if indeed a year is long enough.
It is easy to get caught up in the excitement of these elections, but as critical voters and intelligent students, it is important to remember that our nominees are only in these offices behind me for 1 year.
Underneath the fancy posters and the allure of free sweets, students and nominees must acknowledge that there are inherent problems in our current system. Year after year, ex-sabbatical officers complain that they don't have enough time to cross off every item on their manifestos.
I think it depends what you want to do. Some things you can achieve in your year, some things like the wheelie bins, if you're using external people that you're trying to get to do things, it can take a lot longer, particularly the council and the university who do things at a much slower pace to what we'd like.
All of our candidates enter into the election races with a long list of goals and promises. But as hard as they may try, sometimes the best they can hope for is to ignite a long process of change.
When our SAB team wave goodbye and embark onto greener pastures, what happens?
The Guild started planning for the wheelie bins around about 8 years ago. It's always been a problem with rubbish in Selly and the officer team back then thought wheelie bins would be the way forward, and we've been pushing for them ever since. At the end of last year, we got agreement with the university that they would pay for the wheelie bins. And so in my time in office, I've been keeping on the university to ensure that the money comes forward, and then we worked with the council on how we were going to get the wheelie bins and deliver them to Selly. I think it's definitely been a team effort. Past presidents, VP Housings, staff from the Guild and the university have all pushed for this over the years. And I think it's that collaborative effort that's really made this a reality.
Should the system be changed? Should nominees stop being so ambitious? There is no clear solution. Either way, you need to bear in mind that candidates may not be able to complete everything in a year. So take our advice and read each manifesto carefully and look for one that's achievable.
Thank you very much, Claire. Now we're going to come back to Joe. So, hello again, Joe. So one thing we were just talking about is the fact that some of the candidates are running uncontested, and obviously, really, they're standing against Ron. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, the positions for Vice President Democracy and Resources and Vice President Education there's only one candidate running. Although there is only one candidate running, the candidate of Ron, or reopen nominations, runs in every position. So you can vote for Ron in any position, not just the ones that only have one person running, whether it be SAB or non-SAB. The whole idea with Ron is the idea of you're basically saying that you'd rather someone else did the job, or you're not happy with the candidates who have put themselves forward. Very interesting this year, perhaps unlike other campaigns, there is a more vocal Ron campaign. Obviously, although Ron is a candidate, he's not a official, recognised person, so very difficult for him to run a campaign, you'd think. But on the social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, there is a Ron presence. Some people are running against the idea that, whether it's against the idea that the candidates are running unopposed. As I mentioned before, they don't like the fact that these are people who they feel they're being given the position by virtue of nominating themselves. They haven't had to compete for it. Some people have thought that they're not happy with the way some people have run their campaign. Some people are happy with the Guild in general, and they believe that the Guild needs to change the direction. Interesting talking to people in my various roles with Burn FM, people seem to be more increasingly supporting of Ron. I'm not sure how it's going to pan out. I think one big thing, even if Ron doesn't win the candidate, it never happened before, Ron may not win a SAB position, but if a candidate who is running unopposed, or a candidate who wins out of 1 or 2 or 3, if there is a strong Ron campaign, you have to ask yourself about the legitimacy of the SAB officer and how easy they'll find their role within the coming year if just less than 50%, 45% of people actually didn't vote for them. I mean, if they came through a position of controversy, if there was an issue with something happening in the Guild, and they turn around and say, well, I've got the support of the electorate, and they say, well, actually, 45% of people didn't actually vote for you. It could be very damaging, and it could damage the way the Guild can hold itself, the power it holds within the university setup. It will be very interesting. If Ron has a big influence on this election, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out in elections to come, whether it be SAB, RA, general committee-based elections. As I mentioned before, I think people's opinion of the Guild has changed, and I think this year could be a year for protest votes. I don't think people are happy with the order of things at the moment. Ron could well have a massive impact on this campaign, bigger than any one candidate, and it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out over this next week.
Now, of course, you are part of Burn FM, and you do a lot for them, don't you? So, what have you got coming up? What are you doing as part of the elections?
Me personally, I was in the studio for the presidential debate. We had a pre and post analysis show. I will be in the studio on results night. I'll have guests in, I'll have interviews. We've got Burn FM's very own History Boys, Ben Ryder and Josh Nash, providing commentary throughout the whole of the proceedings. We've got roving reporters in Student Development, in Deb Hall, around the Guild during the night, interviewing campaign teams, SAB officers, candidates themselves. And we will have each night from 5:30 till 6 a debate with each of the candidate positions. Vice President Education went out on Saturday, and Vice President Activities and Development went out on Friday already. They're available online. If I remember rightly, Vice President Sport went online today. That was done with Burn FM's Head of Sport, Tom Gary, just yesterday, so most recent debate we've done so far. Very interesting debate. I was there, I went to listen. It was very good. That's go on YouTube if you just search that. Obviously, Burn FM's had a hand in the coverage so far, and throughout the week there'll be different election shows going on as well, so all available on Burn FM, and hopefully it'll all be podcast via our website and via the Guild Elections website as well.
So we've had one member of all the Guild groups come in, and one thing we've spoken about is the fact that only about a quarter of students vote, and how important do you think media is in reaching those students, reaching the silent majority, and getting people really engaged with the Guild? Massively important.
On Burn FM, one of my major roles is with the sport, and working with Sports Report as a joint Burn FM, Guild TV, Red Brick venture has been massively encouraging. Over 1,000 people have viewed some of the videos now. It's very, very good. I mean, obviously the quality of both GTV, of Burn FM is increasing all the time. And joint ventures often are very, very the best thing we do, in my opinion. I've just come back from Sheffield. It was a joint Burn FM and Guild TV coverage of the Bucks Gatorade Nationals, and it was a massive success. I think Guild media is the way forward. Promoting the Guild using Facebook, using Twitter, using websites specific to things that happen in Guild life is key. Obviously, because it's our media, we should use it to promote to our people, and that is key for me. I think it's going to be very influential over the next couple of elections, over the next couple of years.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Joe.
My pleasure.
Now remember, voting has opened, so make sure to get your friend and as many people involved as possible.
Yes, voting closes at Friday on 4, but I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today.
I'm Katharine Walker.
And I'm Josh Paydemonge.
This has been your elections update.
Thanks for watching.